Hey, Daddy. That voice still rings in my ears. It wasn't the word itself that hit me, it was who said it, and who he said it to. My son. My 5-year-old son, Micah, shouting across the sun-baked sidewalk of a new development site, arms outstretched as he bolted toward a tall man with a red truck and a sleeve tattoo. And not toward me. The man stiffened. He looked at Micah, then at me, then back at the boy. Eyes flickering with something I couldn't name: confusion, guilt, or familiarity. I stood there, my clipboard halfway to the ground, sweat slicking my neck despite the cool spring breeze. My brain couldn't compute what my eyes were seeing. Micah was grinning, the pure, unfiltered joy of a child running to someone he loved. Daddy, he shouted again. The man didn't correct him. 5 years earlier, I didn't believe in moments like that, the ones that fracture your reality clean in two. Back then, I was a 32-year-old mobile home appraiser for Stark County, North Dakota. I drove from edge-of-nowhere trailers to half-built housing tracts, checking for code compliance, inspecting plumbing, measuring drywall sag, you name it. The kind of job nobody notices unless I screw it up. Which I don't. I'm good at what I do. Reliable. Boring, maybe, but the kind of boring that holds families together. Or so I thought. Jenna came into my life like a prairie storm, sudden, dazzling, and a little too strong to be natural. I met her while inspecting a property line dispute just outside Bismarck. It was late October, and the wind was doing that sideways thing it does before snow decides to stick. She was standing on the porch of a semi-finished prefab ranch, tapping her phone like she was texting life support. "You the inspector?" she called. "No hello." I lifted my badge. "Carter Hollis. You must be Jenna Klein." She nodded. "I've got 2 buyers lined up and the county's about to red tag the roof line over a gutter that doesn't even exist yet. Can we move this along?" She was blunt, efficient, smart, and somehow still smiling when she talked. Her lips curved like punctuation marks. I remember thinking she had too much charm for real estate. She should have been on TV. Over the next 2 hours, we ended up stuck in the model home waiting out a snow burst. Her phone died. Mine had 1 bar. We shared a bag of Cheetos from the side office and talked about everything from property tax loopholes to Midwest childhoods. By the time I left, my inspection report had a footnote recommending minor adjustments, and I had Jenna's number written inside the fold of my glove. We had dinner 3 nights later. She wore this forest green sweater that brought out gold flecks in her eyes. I wore my only clean button down. We didn't talk about real estate. We talked about regret. About how she almost went to Chicago but stayed to help her mom through chemo. About how I never left Bismarck because I couldn't stand the thought of my dad mowing that lawn alone after my mom died. We weren't fast, but we weren't slow either. Just shy of 10 months later, we were married in a small ceremony behind her cousin's farm. No tuxedos. No drama. Just laughter, lightning bugs, and her hand in mine. She got pregnant 3 months after that. Micah was born just before our first anniversary. The hospital lights made everything look unreal, like we were starring in a reenactment of our own lives. I remember the first time I held him. His eyes were dark, nearly black, scrunched closed like he wasn't ready to face the world yet. I remember thinking he looked like Jenna. The soft nose, the rounded chin. But he had my ears, I told myself. Maybe the same cowlick. That had to count for something. I didn't need a DNA test. I didn't even need a doubt. He was mine. He called me Daddy. That was all I needed. Until that red truck. The development site was part of a new suburban sprawl called Whispering Pines. Ugly name for what was essentially a cookie-cutter neighborhood slapped on former grazing land. Jenna had helped close on 4 properties there already, said she was riding the dual income boom. I rolled my eyes but supported her. She was always good at making deals. That morning, I brought Micah with me on a surprise visit to her open house. She'd left early, said she wanted the staging perfect. He was home from pre-K with a mild cough, and I thought, what the hell, he'll enjoy running around an empty house. When we pulled into the dirt-packed street, I spotted her SUV parked near Lot 18. But she wasn't there. Micah ran ahead, delighted. I followed, scanning for her or maybe one of her colleagues. That's when it happened. The red truck rumbled up the unfinished curb and parked with a casual confidence I recognized all too well, like he'd been there 100 times. Micah lit up. "Daddy." I froze mid-step. The man climbed out. Late 30s, maybe. Tan skin. Black hair buzzed close to his scalp. Thick arms, not gym muscles, but real work-built ones. He wore a safety vest over a long-sleeve tee. Construction boots. That tattoo running from wrist to elbow caught my eye, a mountain line with clouds above it. oddly beautiful. He didn't smile when Micah ran to him. He crouched down and looked at the boy with a mixture of confusion and something else. Familiarity. Like he knew Micah. Like he'd held him before. My feet didn't move. My mouth opened, then closed. The world tilted just slightly off its axis. The man finally said, "Hey, bud, you got the wrong guy." But his eyes didn't match his words. Micah stopped, confused. "But," Mommy said. That's all I heard. I closed the gap fast. "Hey," I said, sharper than I meant. "Micah, come here." He looked at me, wide-eyed. A little scared now. The man stood up, towering a good 4 inches over me. He nodded politely. Didn't mean to confuse the kid. Must be the truck, maybe. Happens. No worries, I said through a forced smile. I'm Carter. His father. We shook hands. His grip was firm. Measured. Shane, he said simply. I remember that name. Jenna had mentioned him months ago, a site manager she worked with during the early builds. She'd said he was crude, a little flirty, but knew his stuff. She said it like she was warning me about office gossip. I hadn't thought twice about it. Now I couldn't stop thinking. Didn't know you'd be working out here, I said casually. He shrugged. Only here for a week or two. Just patching some framing issues. Your wife said you worked inspection. Yeah. Mobile code for the county. He gave me a look that might have been respect. Or something else. Micah tugged my arm. Can we go see Mommy now? Sure, buddy. I looked at Shane. He smiled, a bland, professional smile. Nice meeting you. You too, I said automatically. I didn't mean it. That night, Jenna was unusually affectionate. She laughed at my dumb jokes. Sat closer than usual on the couch. Offered a back rub out of nowhere. Maybe I should have leaned into it. Maybe I should have taken it as the apology it was never meant to be. Instead, I asked, Micah saw Shane today. Her body went still. Yeah, she said after a beat. He's working out at Whispering Pines again. He ran to him. Called him Daddy. She blinked. What? He yelled it. Ran straight to him. Shane said it was the truck. Said maybe he got confused. She laughed, too loudly. Well, that's embarrassing. Kids say the weirdest things, huh? Micah said, Mommy said, and then stopped. She shrugged. You know how he makes stuff up. Yesterday he told my sister he was a dinosaur. I didn't push. I didn't accuse. But something inside me, the thing that always trusted Jenna, cracked. Just a hairline fracture. But those spread fast. You ever watch someone tell you a lie so smooth, it feels like a compliment? That's how Jenna lied to me the night after Micah called Shane Daddy. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it, like I was crazy for even noticing. Like I was lucky to be included in the conversation at all. I let it go. Or at least, I acted like I did. But in my mind, that moment rewound itself every time I blinked. Micah's tiny voice shouting for someone else. The man's face, Shane, half smiling like he knew something I didn't. Like he wasn't just familiar with my son. Like he owned part of him. The next week, Jenna returned to her usual rhythm. Phone glued to her hand. Real estate lingo spilling from her mouth, like second nature. Escrow, counteroffer, floor plan premium. She had a gift. People trusted her. Probably because she looked like she belonged in a catalog for starter homes and white wine. Bright but non-threatening. Me? I was the opposite. I measured crawl spaces and told people why their porch steps violated code. No one ever said I had charisma. They said I had a good eye for damage. So that's what I started doing, looking for damage. In her behavior. In our history. In the little details I used to dismiss. Like how she always got jumpy when Shane's name came up, even in passing. How she never wanted me at her closing events or open houses if he was scheduled to be there. How she always claimed Micah got his eyes from her uncle. Even though she never showed me a single photo of said uncle. I didn't tell her what I was doing. But I told Elise. Elise Bannon has been my best friend since 8th grade. Grew up 2 blocks over, same school bus. She saw me through my parents' divorce, my first car accident. In the summer, I almost married a girl I met on a Christian dating site who thought dinosaurs were a liberal hoax. She and Jenna got along, technically. They smiled at each other. Talked about skincare. Shared wine once a month. But Elise once told me, quietly, after a double whiskey, I don't think she loves you the way you love her. And I think that matters. Back then, I'd brushed it off. Said Elise was just protective. Now I wasn't so sure. She ever talk about Shane around you? I asked over lunch at a Thai place she loved. Shane who, she replied. I didn't answer. Just stared. Her eyes narrowed. Wait. That construction guy from the Bridal Expo a few years ago. I blinked. Bridal Expo? Yeah. Remember that booth she dragged us to? For the smart kitchen systems? He was there helping set up something. They talked for like 20 minutes while we waited in line for coupons. I didn't remember that. She leaned in. Why? I told her about the red truck. About Micah. About what he said. She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, "You ever consider a paternity test?" It felt like she'd slapped me. No, I snapped. Why would I? But the words trailed off before I could finish them. I knew why. Because now I could not consider it. 2 days later, I borrowed a paternity test kit from Ramon. Ramon Dillard worked in my department. He was ex-military, hilarious, and slightly terrifying in the way that guys who've seen real things usually are. We trusted each other, had each other's backs during floods, evictions, and the occasional armed squatter. When I told him I was looking into something personal, he didn't ask a bunch of questions, just nodded and said, "Don't tell me anything you can't take back. But I've got a kid in my garage." Why do you have a paternity kit in your garage? Let's just say my cousin had a situation, and it's cheaper online in bulk. I didn't press. Swabbing Micah's cheek while he slept felt like stabbing myself in the chest with a butter knife. He was lying on his favorite pillow, the one with dinosaurs that glow in the dark. He snored softly, one foot hanging off the bed like always. I wiped the inside of his cheek, slowly, carefully, then sealed the cotton into its sterile envelope. He stirred once. "Daddy?" he mumbled, not opening his eyes. "Yeah, bud. Just checking on you." "I love you," he said. "I love you too." And that's when I knew, no matter what that envelope came back with, I was already ruined. I didn't tell Jenna about the test, but I did start checking the front door camera, the little smart bell thing we installed last Christmas. Jenna never liked it. Said it felt paranoid. She kept the alerts off. I didn't. And that's how I found out Shane had been by the house. Twice. Once when I was out of town for a training in Minot. Another when I was working a late inspection shift on the east edge of the county. Both times were in the last 2 months. Both times Jenna told me she was working late or taking a bath. The footage wasn't explicit. Just him at the door, then her opening it, hair down, no makeup, wearing the same robe I'd bought her on our anniversary. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But she stepped aside, and he walked in. That was enough. The test results came in a plain white envelope. No return address. I stared at it for a full hour before I opened it. Then I read it. Then I read it again. Then I threw up in the kitchen sink. Probability of paternity, 0%. Micah wasn't mine. Not biologically. Not medically. Not legally. At least not until I'd signed the birth certificate like a proud idiot 5 years ago. He was Shane's. I'd spent 5 years giving everything to a lie wrapped in pajamas. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I made dinner like normal. Chicken thighs, roasted carrots, box wine. I even lit a candle. She raised an eyebrow. "What's the occasion?" "Just tired of microwave dinners," I said. She smiled, kissed my cheek, told me I was sweet. After dinner, she went a shower. I stayed at the table, and I wrote emails, notes, a timeline, everything I remembered, everything I'd seen, everything I'd dismissed. I compiled the test results, the video footage, the front door logs, the text history between her and Shane I'd managed to recover from our cloud backup. I printed everything, highlighted inconsistencies. It was the first honest thing I'd done in weeks, and it felt like preparing for war. The next day, I called a lawyer, a woman named Celeste DeMar, sharp, practical, unbothered by small-town whispers. She looked over my folder in silence, her red pen tapping each page like a metronome. When she got to the paternity test, she paused. "You signed the birth certificate?" "Yes." "You raised him since birth?" "Yes." She sighed. North Dakota courts don't love disestablishing paternity once a father's been in the child's life this long. "You're his dad on paper." I swallowed. "Even if I didn't know the truth?" She nodded slowly. "It's possible, but it's messy. And if we go nuclear, which this is, you need to be ready for fallout." "What kind of fallout?" "Custody fights. Public hearings. People picking sides." I leaned back in the chair. "I just want the truth out." Celeste looked at me for a long moment. "Then be ready to lose everything that was built on a lie." That night, I took Micah to Elise's. Told Jenna he needed a playdate. Then I waited for her to come home. I had everything laid out on the table. The envelope. The emails. The photos. The flash drive. I didn't say a word when she walked in. She looked at the stack. looked at me, and her face didn't break. It shifted into something colder, controlled. Where did you get all this? She asked. Does it matter? Her eyes flicked to the envelope. She recognized it. Her silence said so. I didn't know for sure, she said finally. Don't lie. I didn't, Carter. I thought you were the father. I hope, but you weren't sure. No. You let me believe he was mine for 5 years. She crossed her arms. What would you have done if I told you the truth back then? Left me? Left him. My throat closed. Maybe I wouldn't have built my entire life on a lie. She stepped closer, voice dropping. He is your son. Maybe not by blood, but by everything else. You're the only dad he's ever known. You think ripping that away makes you the good guy here? I'm not trying to be the good guy. Then what are you trying to be? I stared at her. Free. People think betrayal feels like fire. It doesn't. It feels like silence. That choking, ear-pounding silence after a bomb goes off. You're blinking through dust, lips moving, but no sound comes out. That was me, standing in my own kitchen, watching Jenna pace back and forth like she was the victim. Like she was the one blindsided by all this. She kept asking questions. What are you going to do? Are you leaving? Are you going to tell him? She never said Shane's name. Not once. Just him. Like she could erase the weight of 5 years by trimming the edges of the truth. I need time, I finally said. To think. To breathe. She nodded. Eyes rimmed red. Hands clutched together like she was praying. Micah came back from Elise's the next morning, arms around my waist before I could even say hello. I held him tighter than usual. I could feel Jenna watching from the porch, wondering if I was going to tell him. Wondering if I was about to snap. I didn't. Because the truth wasn't his burden yet. But it would be Shane's. Before I confronted Shane, I needed to be sure. Not just about the test. About everything. So I went to Ramon again. You ever run a background check on someone not for work? I asked over lunch at a food truck lot near the Riverwalk. He raised an eyebrow. You planning a hit, Hollis? I smirked. Not unless it's legal. He leaned back. I know a guy. He's semi-retired, used to work county security. Got bored. Started doing digital PI stuff. What do I owe you? Nothing yet. But if this turns into a Netflix doc, I want a producer credit. 3 days later, Ramon texted me a Dropbox link with one word. Boom. Inside was a goldmine. Shane Travers, 37, previously employed by Griswold Contractors, terminated quietly in 2016 for inappropriate conduct with a client. Filed for bankruptcy the following year. Opened his own small firm, Travers Buildworks, which did subcontracting jobs across state lines. Guess who signed off on over a dozen of those in 2018? Jenna. More interestingly, her email appeared on 3 separate internal proposal drafts for properties that were never officially listed. That means she had access to pre-listing data, valuable information for developers like Shane. If she passed that to him while they were still just colleagues, that's a serious breach of ethics. And in some jurisdictions, criminal fraud. Even more damning? A payment trail. Shane's business transferred a $12,500 payment to a private account 3 weeks before our wedding. The account belonged to JK Consulting. Guess who opened it? Jenna Klein. She used her maiden name. I didn't want to believe what it looked like. That she married me for stability. That she let me believe Micah was mine because I was a safer bet. That she sold access to my inspection reports in exchange for kickbacks. But every document screamed the same thing. You were never the plan. You were the pawn. I printed everything. Bound it in a folder with tabs and color-coded highlights. Not because I thought she'd confess, but because I wanted evidence to live somewhere physical. Somewhere permanent. Just in case I ever doubted myself. Or needed to show a lawyer. Or a judge. I also backed it all up in 3 cloud accounts and a password-protected USB drive that I stashed in my office safe. Because this wasn't going to be a breakup. This was going to be war. The next time Shane showed up at Whispering Pines, I was waiting. I parked across the street in my county truck, sunglasses on, clipboard out, like I was doing routine property notes. He didn't recognize me until he was halfway out of his cab. I got out slowly. Calm. Calculated. Hey, Shane, I called. He turned. Blinked. Hey. Carter, right? I nodded. Walked up until we were just a few feet apart. You busy? Little bit. Why? I handed him a manila envelope. His name written neatly on the front. What's this? Read it. He opened it. Inside, the paternity test. The payment ledger. Copies of the email threads. The property transfer documents with Jenna's signature. He didn't say a word. He just flipped page after page, jaw tensing more with each one. You knew? I asked softly. Shane swallowed. I didn't know for sure. But you suspected. I told her to get a test back then. She said it wasn't mine, that you were her future, that it didn't matter. And you believed her. He didn't answer. You ever come to my house again, I said, you won't be walking away with a manila folder. You'll be leaving in a cruiser. Look, I didn't mean I don't care what you meant. You lied to a child. You let me raise your son while you visited behind my back. His voice cracked. He is my son. I stepped closer. No, he's a boy you helped create. But a father? That takes more than biology. You never earned that word. I turned to leave. He grabbed my shoulder. Wait. My elbow came up hard, square into his ribs. He dropped to one knee, wheezing. I didn't wait for him to recover. That night, I served Jenna the first of 3 legal papers. Notice of intent to disestablish paternity. She read it in silence. What happens to Micah? She finally whispered. He stays with you. For now. And us. There is no us. There hasn't been since you handed a baby to a man who didn't know he wasn't the father. Tears slid down her cheeks. I thought I loved you, she said. I nodded. That's the worst part. I did love you. I packed my things over the next week. Took only what I'd brought into the marriage, clothes, tools, my grandfather's watch. Left the rest, including the lie. Micah asked why Daddy wasn't coming home. I didn't have the heart to explain paternity statutes to a 5-year-old. So I said, sometimes people do things that hurt others. Even people we love. Is it because of Mommy? I paused. It's because of both of us. He nodded, looked out the window, then asked, will I still see you? I smiled. Forced, tight. Every time you look in the mirror, but you'll see all the things I taught you. That part doesn't go away. Then I hugged him like I'd never see him again. Because honestly, I didn't know if I would. You think you're prepared for pain. But there's a special kind of pain when a 5-year-old who calls you dad isn't yours, and the woman who knew, who always knew, still let you name him. For 5 years, I woke up to that boy's face. I carried him to the ER when he broke his collarbone falling off the couch. I sang to him in a parking lot during a tornado drill because he was scared of the sirens. I taught him how to tie his shoes using my method, loop, swoop, pull, loop again. None of it was mine. I didn't just lose a wife. I didn't just lose a son. I lost a version of my life that had felt real every single day, until it wasn't. After the test came back, and the confrontation with Jenna twisted into half apology, half deflection, I moved out. Quietly. No screaming. No slamming doors. I packed what was mine into 3 boxes and a tool bag. I left Micah's room untouched. Jenna barely said a word. Maybe she thought silence would make it feel less real. Maybe she was hoping I'd cool off and come back. I wasn't coming back. I moved into a short-term rental, a 1-bedroom apartment above an old print shop off Riverwood. It smelled like ink and pine cleaner. But it was mine. No memories. No photos of a family that never truly existed. I'd have called it hollow, but the truth is, it felt peaceful. For 3 weeks, I disappeared. No calls to Jenna. No legal action. Just quiet. Grief has a sound, and in that apartment, I heard every decibel of it. My mother came by once. Knocked gently. When I opened the door, she didn't cry, didn't gasp. Just walked in, took one look at my face, and said, "So it's true." I nodded. She sat on the couch. "Do you still want to be his father?" I stared at the floor. "I don't know." She hesitated. Then, "He's still a child. Don't make him pay for what his mother did." That hit me hard. But I wasn't making Micah pay. I was making Jenna answer. The unraveling started when I logged into Jenna's old iCloud. She'd once used my laptop to export property photos. She never logged out. Most of it was boring, real estate contracts, client texts, filtered selfies she never posted. But there was a folder called Buildstream Docs. Inside were PDFs, signed offers, development plans, land assessments. Most damning? 3 of those land assessments had my name typed in the field marked Consultant Recommendations. Except I never touched those properties. She'd forged my name. And those developments? They were handled by Travers Build Works, Shane's company. The same Shane who'd pretended not to know Micah that day in Whispering Pines. I kept digging. Tracked the file metadata. Dates. Upload origins. 2 were created the same week Jenna and Shane flew to Denver for what she claimed was a RE/MAX regional summit. Turns out, there was no summit. But there was a conference at the Sheraton for private development deals. She'd booked 2 rooms. The confirmation emails were right there. Same check-in time. Same floor. She hadn't just lied about Micah. She'd been lying about everything. And all that time, I'd helped her, letting her borrow my reports, drive my truck to listings, piggyback on my licenses, my reputation. She'd used me like scaffolding. And now it was time to bring the whole structure down. I contacted a local white-collar crime attorney. Low profile, high success rate. She reviewed everything, my notes, the emails, the screenshots. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You realize this isn't just fraud, right?" I blinked. Then what is it? Real estate wire fraud. Possibly forgery. If she passed off documents under your name and used them to push sales for profit, that crosses into criminal territory. I swallowed. Can we report her? She smiled faintly. We can do better. We can ruin her license first. Jenna received her cease and desist letter a week later. It accused her of misrepresentation, forgery, and unethical profit derived from confidential county inspection access. My name was all over the complaint. She texted once, "You're trying to burn down my life." I didn't reply. She followed up, "You said you needed space. Now you're trying to destroy me." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "No, I'm just tearing down what you built on my back." Then I blocked her number. The North Dakota Real Estate Commission opened a formal review. Temporary suspension of Jenna's license. Investigation pending. Rumors spread. She lost 2 listings in a single week. Her photo came down from a regional ad campaign she used to boast about. Even her broker, Mark, a guy I'd met at our wedding, called me privately. "She's not who I thought," he said. "Neither was I replied. I thought revenge would feel electric. It didn't. It felt like demolition. Necessary, dusty, slow, but effective. Then came the final blow. Elise called one night. Her voice low. "Micah asked where you were." My throat tightened. I hadn't seen him in over a month. Not since I left. "He said Shane came by," she continued. "Brought him a toy tool set. Said he's going to teach him to build stuff." My heart sank. "That's his plan." I asked. "I don't think it's Micah's plan." There was a pause. Then she added, "You're not the one who broke this, Carter. You're the one holding the broken pieces." I made a decision. Not to fight for custody. Not to stay. But to finish the story on my terms. I wrote one final letter. To Jenna. Inside, I included a notarized copy of the paternity disestablishment. A printed statement that I'd forfeited parental rights with no intention of return. A spreadsheet documenting every expense I'd paid for Micah, daycare, hospital bills, formula, preschool, and a note that I wasn't asking for reimbursement. That I considered it the price of believing in her. At the very end, I wrote, "You don't owe me anything. You already took what you wanted. This isn't vengeance. This is release. May your next truth be built without my name on the blueprint. CH." I hand-delivered it. Left it on the front step. Didn't ring the bell. Didn't look back. Funny thing about closure? It never knocks. It slips a letter under the door, shows up in a dream, or sometimes, it wears a Spider-Man hoodie and says your name like it still means something. 3 months after I walked away from Jenna and Micah, I got a voicemail from Elise. "Micah's asking for you again. He doesn't get it. I think you should talk to him." I sat in the silence that followed for a long time. Long enough for the takeout in front of me to go cold. Long enough for the old ache to start up again, low in my chest. Micah wasn't mine, but he had been. Every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every backseat car ride singing along to country songs he didn't know the words to. Every one of those moments still lived somewhere in me. And now he wanted answers. I met him at a playground. Neutral ground. Elise brought him. He ran to me the second he saw me, like nothing had changed. "Daddy," that word. I hadn't heard it in months. It knocked the air clean out of my lungs. He hugged my legs. I knelt, held him like I used to. He pulled back. "Why don't you live with us anymore?" I looked at Elise. She gave me a nod, stepped away. I sat him on a bench, eye level. "Hey buddy," I said. "Remember how we talked about how sometimes grown-ups make promises they can't keep?" He nodded. "Well, I thought I was your forever daddy. But sometimes, things happen that change what we thought was true." He blinked. "Do you not love me anymore?" That one nearly broke me. I took his hands in mine. "Micah, listen to me. I will always love you. Nothing can change that. Even if I'm not around every day." He frowned. "So, I have 2 dads now." I swallowed. "You have one man who raised you, and another who helped make you. But only one of them tucked you in every night." He smiled. That was you. Yeah, I said. That was me. The next day, I packed. Not just for a move. For an exit. I'd sold my truck to a dealer in Fargo. My inspection license was transferred to the Montana board. I'd leased a small A-frame cabin near Flathead Lake. Nothing fancy, just timber, quiet, and a workbench view of the mountains. Ramon called to help load the U-Haul. You sure about this? He asked. I nodded. Bismarck's full of ghosts. Fair. But you know ghosts follow sometimes. Then I'll leave the lights off. He smiled. You'll be back. North Dakota always gets her boys back. I wouldn't bet on it. I stopped by my mom's house on the way out of town. She stood on the porch, arms crossed. You really doing it? I am. She nodded. Your father would have stayed. I smirked. He also never changed his haircut in 30 years. He was stubborn. You're scared. Is that so? She stepped down, kissed my cheek. You earned your escape. Just don't forget there are still people here who love you. Even if you're a Hollis by mail now. I laughed. She slipped a folded note into my pocket. Don't open it until you're across state lines, she warned. Jenna never called, but she saw the red envelope. I left it on her front step the morning I left town. Inside was everything she ever wanted from me. Finalized legal withdrawal from Micah's guardianship. Documentation that I declined child support and acknowledged full transfer of decision-making. A printed receipt of a $5,000 trust fund started in Micah's name, not under mine, but held anonymously for him to access when he turns 18. And one handwritten sentence. He deserves better than both of us. Please don't waste it. Carter. The road to Montana was long, flat, quiet. The plains gave way to hills. The hills gave way to snow-dusted ridges. By the time I crossed the border, the sky had shifted. Deeper blue, like the past couldn't quite follow me here. At a rest stop, I finally opened my mom's note. Inside, I was never proud of you because you were a father. I was proud of you because you chose to be one, every day, without knowing the truth. That's what makes you the kind of man your dad always hoped you'd be. That first night in Montana, I didn't unpack much. I set up the bed, made coffee on the porch, and watched the pine trees breathe in the wind. My phone buzzed once. A photo from Elise. Micah holding a toy hammer. Smiling. He wanted you to see what he's building. No caption needed. He'd be okay. He had a real hammer now. But he'd also always have the memory of mine. Some men survive betrayal by forgetting. Some by fighting. Me? I survived by rebuilding. One plank. One wall. One truth at a time. And somewhere down the line, I stopped wondering whether Micah remembered me. Because I realized I'd never forget him.